What's going on, guys and gals? It is Tuesday. Welcome to another edition of Giants Collective. And I actually did the episode count. This should be episode number 82 because I know we're closing in on 100, but I believe this is 82. One short today. Chris's birthday, I believe, is tomorrow. So his family took him out today. I don't remember if Chris is 39 or 40. I think he's 11 years younger than me, so I think he's 39. I could be wrong about that. He's a lot younger than I am, but happy birthday to Chris, obviously. I'm joined by Anthony right next to me. And, of course, in the far, I guess it's the right of the screen, is our girl, Adriana. We appreciate you tuning in to another edition of Giants Collective. As always, hit the thumbs up and subscribe. It helps us out huge. You can check us out on TikTok and Instagram. You can also check us out on wherever you get your podcasts, which Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and iHeartRadio. If you want to become a member, just click that join button. You get all the cool emojis. And as you see, we have a new sponsor tonight. So the first portion of the show is brought to you by Manta Sleep, which I got my mask right here. Manta Sleep is awesome. If you're tired of waking up before your alarm because the sun hits your face, normally I sleep with a pillow over my face so that doesn't happen. The Manta Original Sleep Mask blocks out every bit of light so you can actually stay asleep. True 100% blackout. It blocks out all light, even around the nose, which is good because my nose is huge, and sides for complete darkness. They have adjustable eye cups, which is great. It's soft, lightweight, breathable, and keeps you comfortable all night. You won't overheat. It also fits all head sizes. As you see, this little strap in the back. So even my peanut head, it fits really well. The Manta Sleep Mask blocks out every bit of light so you can get real, uninterrupted darkness. The eye cups adjust to fit your face just right and never press in your eyes. Plus, the soft, breathable fabric keeps you comfortable all night long. You can go to the website, mantasleep.com, and use the promo code NYG to get 10% off your purchase. And you know what else Manta Sleep is great for, guys and girls? You could really watch a Giants like this. This is a really good way to watch Giants football, if you ask me. So it's even perfect for Sundays when you have the Giants on. You can check them out just like that. Obviously, there was some big news yesterday. We didn't know if it was going to happen, but it did happen. And that is Ozempic Daboll got his walking papers. Adriana, tell us your reaction.
Honestly, I had mixed emotions only because I really thought if they were going to fire anyone first, it was going to be Bowen. And the fact that they went straight to Daboll, I know there was so much talk leading up, and especially after the game, that you cannot not fire Daboll after this. And I thought about it, and I saw it from both sides, and I'm not advocating for Daboll to stay. I was one of those people who wanted him gone, and I am glad that he's gone. I just was surprised by it because I didn't think that they were going to do it mid-season. Like, we had heard about that report about the Broncos game, and I just thought, there's been a lot of weeks of the defense losing games in the fourth quarter, Jackson Dart in this offense looking functional, and I just thought, like, is this really going to be the icing on the cake that did it? And I was surprised that ended up being the case. So obviously I do think it was the right move. I think there are a lot of issues with this football team, and I think it starts with the coaching staff and it starts with Brian Daboll. But like I said, I'm still surprised it wasn't Bowen, but I think making Kafka the interim, the head coach, was the right move. There's a couple things that I want to see Kafka do, and we can talk about that later, I'm sure. But I just hope it brings a renewed sense of spark or energy to this football team. It sounds like the Jackson Dart injury was the thing that really sent ownership over the edge. And I also heard that there was some talk from players that there needs to be accountability when losses like this happen over and over again. And, I don't know if they meant Shane Bowen or if they meant Brian Daboll. I don't know who they meant by that. But I do think that, I'm excited to watch what Kafka can do for this team. I don't think he's going to turn it around and we're going to win the next 6 games, but I do think that we could see something a little bit different. So I'm optimistic that, with Daboll gone, maybe we will see a couple things different. Maybe we'll see a couple different play calls in the offense that maybe Daboll wasn't on board with, or maybe we're going to see some aggressiveness on both sides of the ball and they're going to play to win instead of playing to lose. So I'm optimistic that, it's the right move. I do feel a little bit bad for Dart. I will say that. I don't think that he expected that to happen, but I know we've all talked about the fact that we think Daboll with a great coach will be even better, and that will benefit everyone. I'm sure he's a little bit disappointed, but like I have said before, I don't think Jackson Dart is stupid. I think he wants to win football games, and I think he knows that Daboll was the reason that was holding them back. So we'll see if Mike Kafka is going to bring a spark and bring something different to this team as a whole.
Anthony, what was your reaction to the firing of Brian Daboll?
Makes sense. I mean, this Giants team blew too many leads. They were sloppy. They were underprepared. They were undisciplined. They had all the signs of a poorly coached football team. So I'm not shocked that this happened, especially since I said on the show, I heard in week 3 that he was a dead man walking. So he walked dead for quite a long time after making the switch to Jackson Dart. But sooner or later, this was going to happen. It's just happening sooner than a lot of people expected. But I kind of said that when we did the show in the offseason, if the going gets tough, I think they'll make the change pretty quickly and see if they can spark something, because there's definitely talent on this roster, and that much has been evident. And now we're going to find out where a lot of these problems, Joe Schoen problems or Brian Daboll problems, Mike Kafka problems or Brian Daboll problems, Shane Bowen problems or Brian Daboll problems. That's all going to be figured out over the course of the next 7 weeks now that we have a change of head coach. You know, some of the question marks about game situational management, clock management, some of the penalties that seemed kind of silly, the challenges, any of those things that you could pinpoint on Brian Daboll. If all those things go away, okay, well, then maybe Brian Daboll was the issue. If those things get worse, okay, maybe Brian Daboll wasn't the issue. And we're going to find out a lot of that stuff and learn a lot about the true colors of this football team over the next 7 weeks. And I think that's exciting. But just kind of reflecting on the Brian Daboll era, I'm upset about this. Not upset that they fired him. I'm just upset that this is the way it went. You know, you think back to that 2022 season, Daboll had so much promise. I really felt like the Giants got it right with Brian Daboll in 2022. He was a quarterback guru. That's how we viewed him. And I honestly still think in many ways he is when we look at what Jackson Dart has done through the first few starts of his career. But, you know, you think back on it, and Daboll had so much potential. He was coach of the year for a reason. He coached his ass off throughout that 2022 campaign. Even in 2023, when Daniel Jones was out of the lineup, he coached Tommy DeVito to 3 straight wins. He had very impressive moments, but it feels to me like his confidence was sky high in 2022. He lost his coordinator, some bumps along the road, and he lost his confidence all the way until this season, because this season he was coaching not to lose. He was very afraid. And when you coach afraid, when you play football afraid, that's when you beat yourself. And that's what happened to the Giants. And I'm just upset that it got to this point, because there was a lot of potential for Daboll. And I feel personally that if he had a better roster in 2023, if he had a better roster in 2024, if he had his quarterback those years, the quarterback that he actually wanted, I think things would have went differently, because I still think there is a good and talented coach inside of Brian Daboll. I just think it's been washed away by a lot of the sins of the past, whether that be general manager's sins or Daboll's own sins. So it's just unfortunate that it went this way. You never want to see somebody lose their job, but it was a necessary change for the New York Giants. I'm excited for a new era. I think it's a half measure, though. I know that we're going to talk about Joe Schoen in a little while, so I'll save my thoughts on that for when we get to that segment. But right now, I'm just kind of reflective on it. Happy that we're moving into a new era, but at the same time, really wish that it went differently for Brian Daboll.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. Before the stream tonight, I was thinking what I was going to say about Brian Daboll as I was making dinner, and I'm with you. It sucks because I really liked Brian Daboll. Like, I think I was more patient with Daboll than any other coach that we've had. Every other coach before him, after Coughlin got 2 years, he got 3.5. It had to happen. I mean, you're 2-8 for a third straight season. You've blown 4 double-digit leads on the road. And again, it's just a lot of bad coaching, a lot of bad plays, a lot of bad penalties, ill-timed penalties, bad clock management, delay of games, just constant little things that really are magnified when you lose games. Had the Giants closed out Denver and Dallas and Chicago, and we're 5-5 after 10 games. With our schedule, Giants fans are probably sky high thinking, wow, we got our quarterback. We're 5-5. Think about what we're going to get when we get Neighbors back and Scatterbo back. And like I said, we beat the Eagles 34-17. We were 2-4. We were on top of the world. It felt like we were in first place. Everybody was talking about the Giants. And like that, when we lost in Denver, it's like, Anthony, you mentioned confidence. Felt like Daboll was really confident. When that happened, all the air went out of the balloon. And then the next week, you lose Scatterbo for the year, and that was kind of the end of it. And then, the final nail in the coffin was when Jackson Dart got hurt. I do believe that was it. And, there's really nothing to tie him to. We've said on this, or at least you definitely said it, Anthony, is, Jackson Dart doesn't need to have Brian Daboll. He's a good enough quarterback. Get him a better coach, he'll be a better quarterback. And there's 3 things I looked at that said Brian Daboll's not keeping his job. Chicago's a much better team with a new head coach. They didn't hold Caleb Williams as rookie coach there, or, his coach when he was a rookie. New England, Drake May looks like an MVP. New England's got the best record, or tied for the best record in the AFC. And Daniel Jones has an 8-2 record as well in Indianapolis. And he's got the most passing yards in the NFL, which is insane. So all 3 of those things to me spelled that, we don't need Brian Daboll to succeed. And those 3 situations prove it. Again, I like Daboll. Tudo's not in here, but Tudo knows I stuck up for Daboll many times, and he'd say, bad dog, fat fucked up, he's got to go. And he's gone now. So we're going to see, like you mentioned, Anthony, is it a Daboll issue? We know it's a Bowen issue. We know Shane Bowen should have been going first. I mean, what the fuck? I don't know how the hell this guy still has a job. First order of business, Mike Kafka, you have to fire him. You want to actually have a good track record, and you want to actually make yourself have a good resume, you got to get rid of that guy. That guy's dead weight. That guy's pulling the team down. There's no way this defense should be this bad with that talent. He's got a lot to do with the losing. So I actually was surprised that he wasn't the first to go. I thought he'd be the sacrificial lamb, the last body in front of the bus before they dumped Brian Daboll. It didn't happen. So again, I'm disappointed, but I understand it had to happen. It's the nature of the business. Like I said, they've been 2-8 the last 3 years. This was inevitable. I thought they might be able to get to the bye. They said, nope, no way, especially after another blown lead about 5 minutes ago. It had to happen. So sucks, but when you suck, that's what happens, man. So now we want to talk about like the other coaches. Obviously, Shane is safe for now. Kafka is going to be our interim head coach. I don't know why Bowen's still there, but he is. Carmen Brasil's still there. Regardless of what happens with this coaching staff, I'd love Brasil to stay. Mm-hmm. Anthony, what do you think the future is of the coaching staff going forward?
Well, I know that it's been reported Shane Bowen is safe for now, so he absolutely could get fired. I imagine if things go south again this upcoming week, then he will be fired. It'll be up to Mike Kafka at this point, but I'm really excited to see Mike Kafka in this position because of what I mentioned earlier. Let's see what changes and what doesn't change. Does the play calling and situational moments, key situations, critical moments, does that change? Do the Giants end up getting some of those conversions that they weren't getting before? Does the red zone offense look better since that's been a struggle for them? Are they more aggressive defensively in the fourth quarter? That's something that the head coach can potentially alter. And let's see if Mike Kafka makes that alteration. Like, I'm excited to see what Kafka changes and what we learn about Daboll versus what we learn about the rest of the staff. It's totally possible Daboll was holding these guys back. It's totally possible that these guys were holding Daboll back. So we could end up learning a hard and ugly lesson out of it, or we could end up learning the truth and be really excited about the future. But I think a lot of Giants fans are going to say Mike Kafka, he's going to bridge us to the end of the year and then he's gone. I actually think people should have an open mind to Mike Kafka here and give him the benefit of the doubt, because if we're buying what the Giants are selling, which we kind of have to at this point if we want to root for the team, then Brian Daboll was the issue and he was holding people back. That's the narrative that the New York Giants want us to believe. Let's see if they're right. And if Mike Kafka ends up coaching this team to a winning record across the final 7 games, and if a lot of those issues that I mentioned are corrected, and Jackson Dart still looks electric, but Jackson Dart also doesn't get injured, well, then you're going to see that Mike Kafka made an immediate impact. And knowing that Joe Schoen is returning for the 2026 season, the Giants clearly do not want to do a full reboot. They want to do a soft reboot. They want to just alter some things. And if that's the mindset that they have, they very well could maintain Mike Kafka as the head coach if he continues to find success with Jackson Dart. Because what's the other big argument against firing, or what was the big argument against firing Brian Daboll? Messing up the continuity for Jackson Dart, asking him to change schemes, asking him to go through a whole process of a regime change. How do you soften that blow? You don't bring in outside people, you just promote from within. And that's something that I think the New York Giants could potentially do if Mike Kafka looks good. And I don't want to put the cart before the horse. He has to prove it first and foremost. But this is a hot young head coaching candidate who went to the final round of interviews with the Saints this past offseason, went to the final round of interviews with the Seahawks the previous offseason. He's been in a lot of final rounds of interviews, gotten second and third interviews before. So there's a lot of people in the league who believe Mike Kafka is a rising head coach candidate. Now he has an opportunity to audition to the Giants and audition to the rest of the league. So I'm going to keep an open mind with it. I want to see what impact Kafka has, what he changes from a coaching standpoint and how that impacts the team. And if that leads to wins, and if Jackson Dart still looks like a rock star with Mike Kafka. And if not, then boom, now you got your answers. You go to a new coach in the offseason, you cast a very wide net, and you hope that the general manager staying in place doesn't prevent you from getting the head coaching candidate that you want, because that's a major concern for me. But I'm just keeping an open mind to Mike Kafka and hoping that he can lead the Giants team to some of those wins, because they had those leads, they blew those leads. If now they get those leads and they maintain those leads, we'll get a lot of answers to questions, and maybe Mike Kafka can win some people over in the building.
Before we get to Adrian, I want to give a big shout out to Doer for sponsoring this portion of Giants Collective. It's a Vancouver-based apparel making ridiculously comfortable jeans and pants that are actually made to move with you. I'm still waiting for my Doer clothes. I can't wait to get them because Adriana liked them. Chris liked them, said they're very comfortable. Their clothes are made from plants and recycled materials, and the fabric is lightweight, breathable, and built to handle your whole day, whether you're commuting, working, or going out. I can't wait to get the clothing because, like I said, it sounds very comfortable. And Lord knows I like to be comfortable at work, doing yard work or whatever. If you want to upgrade your everyday wear, go to shopdoer.com. That's shopdoer, DUER.com. Use the promo code Giants Collective for 15% off your order. You just have to click the link in the description, automatically put it in there for you. So if you want to get some Doer clothing and feel that nice comfort when you're doing things around the house or wherever you're going out, just really nice stuff, make sure you click the link in the description to get your 15% off. Adriana, what do you think the future of the Giants coaching staff is after Daboll was fired?
I think there's going to be a lot of turnover. I would like to keep Carmen Bracillo. I think there are definitely some coaches, positional coaches, that I would think about keeping. Obviously, we're all on board with a new defensive coordinator. I think Kafka is probably not going to be here unless he's the head coach, and I'm not so sure that that's going to be the case next year. So I think we're looking at a new offensive coordinator, a defensive coordinator, and probably some position coaches. I'm under the belief that I would have liked to see them fire Schoen and Daboll together, whether it was midseason or postseason, because I just think that there have been a lot of roster mismanagement issues that have gone on over the last couple of years. And the biggest reason I say that I would have preferred to see Schoen go now versus in January is two things. Number one, John Mara came out and said that he's going to lead the head coach search, but he didn't say that he's going to extend him. So are you telling us that Joe Schoen, who's over one when it comes to the coaching search, who brought in a buddy of his that they spent all this time together and he was so confident was going to be a good head coach and he was going to give him this great roster and it doesn't work out, you're going to tell me that you feel confident Joe Schoen bringing in a stranger? Because I don't think he's bringing in Joe Brady, or else we're going to have Daboll 2.0. So I think that is very odd. The second thing is, because of all the roster mismanagement issues, I have a lot of questions around assistant GM Brandon Brown. And what I would like to see is how Brandon Brown would run this roster for the next 7 weeks. Would he say, well, I'm not the manager, so I don't have to play by Joe Schoen's rules, AKA Evan Neal is inactive 9 out of 10 weeks so far. I'm cutting him. Jalen Hyatt, if Mike Kafka likes him, we're going to make him active. Ray McLeod, don't care that he came to us from Buffalo and he was Daboll's guy. He got one target out of like 50 snaps. We're elevating Lil Jordan Humphrey and he's going to be part of the 53. The whole kicker situation. What's going on there? I know they signed a new kicker, but things like that, I would like to see how Brandon Brown approaches it. And I would have liked to see that through the rest of the season. So, I have a lot of questions about that. I think that, if I were John Mara, I would have kept it simple and said, as of right now, we are keeping Joe Schoen. We're going to see how the rest of the season goes, and then we will reevaluate everything. I don't think there was any need for him to come out and say that he's going to lead the search of the next head coach. Why would you put that out there if you're not extending him? And then there's been reports. I saw one from Ian Connor that said, just because John Mara said that, don't count on Joe Schoen being here. So I don't know. There's a lot that I don't like about it. So I just think if you're going to fire people, you have to fire everyone. And it doesn't all have to be at exactly the same time. I think it makes the most sense if you blow it all up at once. But now in the back of my head, I'm thinking, all right, well, come January, what's going to happen with the head coach search? And if they don't extend Joe Schoen, then we've got a head coach for 1 year. And if things don't go well, or, the 2023 draft class looks like shit, and the 2024 draft class looks like shit, then you're going to fire Joe Schoen next year in 2027. And then you got a head coach with no GM. It's just like, it's infuriating to feel like they never learned their lesson. And that's what is so upsetting to me as a fan, is that it's like every year we go through the same shit. I mean, I just listened to a whole thing on, what was it? WFAN, I think. Don LaGreca and Ian O'Connor again were saying that it was Mara and Tish who said, we are firing Daboll. And then they brought in Joe Schoen and said, hey, guess what? We're the ones, after we like to tell everyone that we don't meddle in business decisions and we don't get involved, it was our decision to fire the head coach, and we're going to tell the GM about it. Okay. That makes me feel really good going into January, that this is how we're going to do things all over again. So, as a fan, I also feel like, why should I have any confidence that they're going to get it right? I know we've all talked extensively. They need to bring in outside help. And maybe if they fire Joe Schoen on January 5th, along with Shane Bowen and blow it all up, I can have a little bit of confidence, maybe. But it's just upsetting. It's like they fired Daboll, and that's going to be the Band-Aid. And then we're all just going to hope for the best. And, we still got Joe Schoen. And look, you can argue that Joe Schoen's done some good things. I don't think everything he's done has been terrible. The Brian Burns trade, there's been a lot of things that, sure, I think he's done fine. But to come out here and say that after 4 years, he's been a great GM who deserves a long contract extension is bullshit. So I think January is going to be very telling. It's going to be a huge focal point as fans and the organization as what we can expect from the future. But to be honest, out of this coaching staff right now, I don't think I'd be keeping a lot of people, because I agree with Joe Schoen and ownership in the sense that I do think this team is more talented than what the record shows. And maybe in the next 7 weeks, we will see what Mike Kafka is really capable of. And if he can take players to the next level, then fantastic. Then finally, we have someone in the building who can take advantage of these players and help them grow, because the player development has been horrible for years under this team. So I don't know. I think January is going to be very telling, but the fact that we have 7 out of 8 years of a losing football team leads me to believe that not only is there some moves that need to be made in the front office, but that a lot of the coaching staff has to go, because there's a lot of players who are not getting better year after year.
Shane Bowen has to go immediately. I think that's been the worst. I mean, I think he's the sore thumb that sticks out worse than any other coach. Just the way they play defense at the end of these games, it should never, ever happen. This team only has 21 sacks. I feel like they should have a lot more, but they should be able to close out games. You should be able to close out Chicago. What changes when you're destroying some? Why are we changing the way we play defense when you have shut them down the entire game? Anthony, you mentioned it. Playing fucking scared. You can't. Scared money, you don't make money. You have to go for shit, especially when you're 2-6, 2-7, like you have nothing to lose. Brian Daboll, I couldn't kill him for kicking the field goal and going up 20-10, but you're at the half-yard line, bro. You're 2-7. Win. I don't want to lose. Win. Try to win. So, but again, 20-10 with 5 minutes to go in that weather, you should be able to close it out with that defense. Shane don't know what the fuck he's doing. Completely clueless. I'm very interested to see what Kafka does. He's been a finalist in a lot of head coaching positions. Maybe we do have our head coach already, and you don't need to search. If the Giants go 4-3, I actually put that on Twitter. If the Giants go 4-3, do you want Kafka to stay as head coach? And if they have a winning record, then he probably should stay on as a head coach. Now, I get a lot of heat because I'm indifferent about Joe Schoen. A lot of people want him out of here. They say he sucks. He didn't do a good job. And I play devil's advocate with this. We've had 4 double-digit leads. We have not been able to close them out. If there was no talent on this defense, we wouldn't even be in the position to win these games. There's no talent on this team. We wouldn't be in position to beat Dallas on the road, to beat Denver on the road, to beat Chicago on the road. We should have won all those games, and it wasn't for lack of talent. If we had lack of talent, we would have got blown out in all those games. So Joe Schoen, in my opinion, has done some bad things. He's missed on some draft picks. Every GM does. No GM bats 1,000. But considering what he came into, the cap situation that he came into, the first year that he didn't have any of a scout team to figure out who they wanted in 2022, the fact that he drafted 25th, I know they traded up to 24th in 2023, but they had a winning record, so they were drafting in the 20s. So it's not like they had high draft picks in 2023. I feel like 2024, he had a really good draft. For some reason, these guys have regressed, Shane Bowen. And in 2025, again, Abdul Carter's got a shitload of pressure, just has to finish plays. Jackson Dart looks like the real deal. You can say that was Brian Daboll's guy. Joe Schoen didn't want him. Joe Schoen wants Shedeur Sanders. I still don't see anywhere that there's proof that that was actually the truth. But regardless, Joe Schoen made the deal. Daboll wanted Dart third. Schoen waited it out. He was patient. He made the move, gave up barely anything to get Jackson Dart. He needs credit for that. Cam Scadaboo is an absolute beast. Marcus Bowe looks really freaking good. We haven't even seen Fedoni play yet. I feel like Joe Schoen did a really good job the last 2 years of building talent. How much can he turn over? He has no cap space. If you have 7 draft picks, if you have 8 draft picks a year, he's had 32 draft picks. I don't know how many he's actually had, but 32 draft picks. You also have to sign players and re-sign players that you want to keep here. And then you have to go out in the free agent market where the Giants haven't had any cap space. He's had a tough job. So I'm not quick to throw him away, but if they went and fired him, I'm not going to throw a fit and say that was the wrong move. I am surprised at the way they handled it. Just because they say Joe Schoen's going to be in the head coaching search, I don't believe that. I remember when Joe Judge was here and Gettleman was here, and they said that they're going to keep them on board for 2022. I was going to cry. I remember them saying, yep, they're coming back. And then a week later, they were both out of here. So I think Joe Schoen's just riding out the year. I don't think his future's safe. I don't think anybody's future safe. The one coach I want to keep is Carmen Brasillo. I think he's fantastic. And people can talk about Shane letting Barkley walk and McKinney walk, and I get it. It looks bad, but we had our quarterbacks got sacked 85 times the year before. He needed to get linemen in here. And the line, it's not a finished product. It's not terrible. It's decent. And that's good for a rookie quarterback. So in my opinion, give Shane another shot at building a line, getting another wide receiver in here, and getting a secondary better. And with good coaching, the Giants might actually be a good team. So again, I take a lot of heat for that because, I stick up for Joe Schoen a little bit. But like I said, if they decided to discard him next week, I'm not going to throw a fit about it. I just feel like he's done a decent job. I'm not going to kill him. He's missed some shots, no question, but they've had some bad roster moves. The kicker situation is ridiculous. But who makes that decision? Does the coach decide who plays and who sits, or does Joe Schoen? Because I've never really known.
That's what I wonder how much of that is going to change with, Daboll gone, because I believe that it falls under the GM, but I also wonder if Daboll has been the one saying to him, we don't need to elevate Turbo. We don't need the roster spot. I like Ray McLeod better. We can save the money on little Jordan Humphrey. Like, I don't know if we'll know the answer to that, but I did see that they just signed a kicker to practice squad today. So I don't, I don't know. I think it's going to be really interesting. Yeah. Maybe we'll have some answers that Saturday with the practice squad elevations.
Yeah, it's interesting. Before we get to the Q&A, let's talk about the Jackson Dart injury a little bit. I think that was the final nail in Brian Daboll's coffin. I don't know when he got concussed. He took a big hit in the face earlier in the game. I thought that might be where he had it. Obviously, when he fumbled, he laid there for a few seconds. At that point, I definitely feel like he was concussed, and then Brian Daboll saw something and said he doesn't look good. Now, we could give Daboll a lot of shit, but I'm going to say this about Brian Daboll. I'm going to give him credit for this. He knows that his job is tied to Jackson Dart. Selfishly, he could have sent him the hell back out there. He was obviously concerned about what was going on with Jackson Dart and put Russell Wilson in there, knowing with Russ under center, we have zero shot at winning. I think Jameis Winston should start Saturday. We'll talk about that more on Thursday. But Adriana, what did you think about the whole situation with Jackson Dart?
It was very odd because I was watching it on TV and it was, 1 minute you're watching Dart on the sidelines and then the next minute it's a commercial and then Russell Wilson's on the field. And I was like, what did I miss? Like, there was no announcement. It was so bizarre, but it sounds like it was on the play where he fumbled. Now, I thought that on that play, he had recovered it. But I was like, Daboll, I figured would have lost his mind and would have thrown the flag, the challenge flag, if he thought that Dart recovered it. But it sounds like that was the hit, his head banged the ground pretty good on that. And supposedly the coaching staff saw him on the sidelines and was like, "You're not okay, dude. You got to go get looked at." So it does sound like that was the final situation. I don't think we're going to see him on Sunday. That was the nail in the coffin for Daboll for sure. And it's unfortunate. I hope for everyone that this is a learning opportunity. I think Jackson Dart is one of those guys that just might have to learn the hard way that, I know Brian Daboll is probably showing you a lot of Josh Allen tape, but you are not the same size as Josh Allen and you cannot be trucking people over, like I always felt like in the press conferences that I personally don't think Daboll did a good job of saying like, I appreciate his toughness, but he has to stop doing shit like that. It was all like glazing him left and right. Like, I love his toughness. We love the aggressiveness, I appreciate that about him. And it was always talking positively about that, which is fine. I think after everything that went down with Daniel Jones, like I'm sure Daboll feels like he had to find some middle ground there. And, maybe he talked to Dart when they were in all their meetings and said things to him like, you really can't be doing stuff like that. That's possible. And it either went in one ear or out the other for Dart, or they never had that conversation. And I think when you're someone like John Mara, you're expecting your coach to keep your quarterback as safe as you can, right? Like he's not in his brain. Jackson Dart has told us 100 times, I'm going to get the first down. If it's a third down and long, I'm always going to try for that extra yard. And that's fine. But to go out of bounds, you have to slide. So that a couple of times, it just was never consistent enough. I just feel like Daboll as the head coach should have made it very obvious that while we appreciate Jackson Dart's toughness, he needs to make smarter decisions and he needs to not always put himself in harm's way. And I just feel like we never got that from Daboll. And I think that bothered Mara, and the fact that he got hit as hard as he did, he fumbled the ball. It basically changed the trajectory of the game. And then that was it. So I hope that Dart is okay. I'm 99% sure we're not going to see him on Sunday. It sounds like it was not a great concussion. The fact that there were multiple coaches on the sideline who said, "You are not okay, dude. Like you have to go get looked at," is a little concerning. So I hope they don't rush him back. Honestly, if it takes him 2 weeks, it takes him 2 weeks. We have Jameis Winston for a reason. You can make Russell Wilson quarterback too. We're not fighting we're not fighting for the division. We're not fighting for the playoffs. As much as I want to see Jackson Dart and I want to see him continue to grow and improve and get those live snaps in the NFL that are so helpful, it's not worth rushing him out there for no good reason. And the one thing I will say is the Giants are consistently conservative when it comes to injuries, so I don't think that they will rush him out there, which I feel a little bit better about. Concussion should be taken seriously. Give him the time he needs to rest.
I said Jameis should play on Saturday. I meant Sunday. And Anthony, what did you think about the Jackson Dart injury and the situation?
Yeah, it was a little weird, and I agree with you. I think it was the final nail in the coffin for Brian Daboll. I think a couple of reporters have said as much, and kind of what Adriana was saying, Brian Daboll's hesitancy to slow Jackson Dart down, I think, is what ultimately signaled to them that he didn't have his finger on the pulse. Because as good as Jackson Dart was playing and as awesome as he was, there are definitely ways that the coach can protect the quarterback's body. He doesn't have to tell him to go out there and run quarterback power. But at the same time, I watched a lot of Jackson Dart at Ole Miss. He ran a lot of these same plays. He ran between the tackles really often at Ole Miss. This is kind of regular for him. This is just how he's always played the game. And so there's definitely an element of it where this is where Jackson Dart is most comfortable, is playing football in this fashion. And I understand from a certain perspective why Brian Daboll would be hesitant to rein that in, because he did that for years at Ole Miss. That's exactly how he played. The play calling from Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, it featured a lot of those between the tackle runs. It featured a lot of those runs where Jackson Dart was going to get hit and invite contact. So that's what he's most comfortable with. And we mentioned, at the beginning of the season, we needed to acclimate Dart. We needed to ease him in. Well, how do you do that? You keep a lot of the concepts that he was comfortable with and familiar with in college, and you apply them to this play calling structure. So that's what Brian Daboll was trying to do, I think, was taking stuff out of the Ole Miss playbook into the Giants playbook and implementing that so that Jackson Dart could be comfortable and play at a high level. And it worked. He is playing at a high level. He looks incredible. He has 7 rushing touchdowns this season. That's more than Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley. Name your pick of most of the Pro Bowl running backs. He's got more rushing touchdowns than most of them. It's incredible what
He's only
Jackson
started
Dart's
7
doing.
games.
Yeah, he's got 1 rushing touchdown per game. He has already matched the New York Giants franchise record for most rushing touchdowns from a quarterback. Daniel Jones did it in 2022 with 7. Jackson Dart has 7. That's incredible. So I give credit to Brian Daboll for the way that he schemed together this offense, or Mike Kafka, or both of them. Give credit to both of them. They did a great job finding ways to get Jackson Dart to use his legs and become a weapon with his legs. He is one of the best rushing quarterbacks in the NFL right now. I think you put him in the top 5 with guys like Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, and some of these other top rushing quarterbacks. Not Lamar Jackson. He's in another level, Lamar. But, those other guys beneath, the one cut beneath Lamar, Jackson Dart's in that cut, and I think that's really impressive. So I don't really have a problem with it. I know I've been the contrarian opinion throughout the whole season saying this. This is who Jackson Dart is. I don't like reining in quarterbacks. I like, having them play their style, how they're comfortable. Dart needs to learn how to protect himself better. Some players hit the ground too hard, and they need to learn how not to do that. He was diving for the ball, trying to recover his own fumble, and he went face first into the ground. That's not on Brian Daboll. That is on Jackson Dart to learn how to protect yourself better, when to slide, how to fall to the ground, how to take those hits. Tua Tagovailoa had a lot of concussions earlier in his career. A lot of that had to do with the fact that he would get hit in the pocket and he would fall backwards and land on his head. He didn't know how to fall. So he spent an entire offseason being trained in one of those karate or something. He learned how to fall and how to protect yourself while falling. And since then, he had 1 concussion, but he hasn't had an abundance of concussions. There is an art to it, to protecting your body, to maintaining your own self-control while going to the ground. And that's something that Dart needs to learn. That's something that he will learn with more experience. So again, I think that Daboll is partially responsible for it. He probably could have toned down some of the play calling, probably could have told Jackson Dart to relax on some of those plays. But again, Jackson Dart invited the contact. He dove into the contact, and that's just who he is. I don't know if any one coach is stepping in and preventing him from doing that. This is something that he's done throughout his entire football career, literally dating back to high school. He used to play on the defensive side of the ball. He played a little linebacker when he was in high school. He likes to hit people. That's who Jackson Dart is. He did it in college too. He ran into people. He runs into people now. So I struggle to give Brian Daboll a lot of blame for that particular issue. I actually don't think it's fair that ownership is blaming him for that. That's a Jackson Dart thing, and I think that's something that we're going to have to live with as Giants fans and as Jackson Dart fans throughout his career. But I will say this, there's hope that he figures it out, because quarterbacks sometimes do. Drake May, he had a couple of concussion protocol moments last year. Actually, I think he was in the tent more than Jackson Dart's been so far. Drake May was in the tent a lot last year. He had a concussion as well. He hasn't been in the tent once this season. It's something you can learn. It's something Tua also has had to learn the hard way. I don't want Jackson Dart to learn it the hard way, but he can learn it. And again, I just struggle to give a lot of that blame to the coach when this is just who Jackson Dart is. But he'll figure it out. He'll rein it in. And I'm excited for when he does, because he is a weapon with his legs. And by no means should the New York Giants eliminate that aspect of the playbook to protect Jackson Dart. They should just find different ways to protect him, but got to keep using his legs. He is a weapon with the ball in his hands.
He is really amazing. I mean, I was kind of indifferent when it came out of Ole Miss. I wasn't upset about it. I wouldn't have been happy if they picked him third. I can tell you my reaction would have been, I would not have been happy. Hindsight, if they picked him third, I'd have no problem. 17 touchdowns total in 7 games against one of the toughest schedules in the NFL. They compare his rookie season to Jaden Daniels, who won Rookie of the Year. Jaden Daniels' numbers are about the same, if not a little bit less than Jackson Dart. Played on a much better team against a much easier schedule. Jackson Dart was throwing to practice squad receivers. He had no Malik Neighbors, and then he lost Scadaboo. He's playing really good against Denver on the road, in Chicago on the road, against Philadelphia. Really tough defenses. You saw Green Bay couldn't do shit last night against Philadelphia's defense, and Jackson Dart was driving the Giants down the field all game long. Scored 5 touchdowns against Philly. Scored 5 touchdowns against Denver. And again, against the Saints, I know we turned it over a bunch of times, and we drove the ball down the field every damn time we had it. It's just, he's really good. I understand that you don't want to take that aggression away from Jackson Dart. I get it. The biggest difference when I see what he did at Ole Miss and here, when you're in college and in high school, you're going against kids. You're going against 18, 19-year-old kids. When you're in the NFL, you're going against grown-ass men who are much stronger and much faster. So when you're getting hit by a guy that's not going to make the NFL level, it's a little bit different than getting hit by, say, a Zach Bond. Okay. It's a little bit different when you're getting hit by guys that are 27, 28, and they're fully developed adult males as opposed to guys that haven't got all their muscle mass yet and they're fresh out of high school, they're sophomores. It's a little bit different. The speed of the NFL is much different too. And I think, Anthony, to your point, that's something Jackson Dart probably has to get acclimated to, is the plays come at him so much faster. Where in college, it's a slower game. So he probably can make better adjustments. In the NFL, those guys are on you like that. You probably think you have an extra second and you don't have it because they close so fast and they hit so hard. So, yes, I agree with you. I don't want to take that away from him, but he does have to learn how to protect himself. I'm not saying he has to slide. He should slide more. He has to learn to do that. He has to learn to get out of bounds. But at the same time, I don't want him to just be diving and flopping down on the ground. I don't want him to lose his aggressiveness, but he has to understand when to try to get that extra yard and when it's just better to sacrifice the play and say, I'll get it on the next play, live to fight another down. So I think he'll be back. I love the kid. I think he's tough as nails. I think he's a winner. His football acumen is amazing. His pocket presence is amazing. He is fun to watch. I just want to see him I want to see next year us healthy with a real head coach and get the most out of him. And let's draft Carnell Tate, under Jordan Tyson, somebody, and let's put them next to Malik Neighbors, and the other side of Malik Neighbors with Cam Scadaboo. Holy shit! Because our offense actually wasn't disgusting to look at this year when he got in there. So I know he'll be okay, but like you mentioned, Adriana, no hurry to get him back. We're not fighting for anything here. Make sure he is 100% healthy. And then when he tells you he's 100% healthy and he passes all the tests, you still hold him out another week and let Jameis go out there and throw 3 touchdowns and 5 picks. Our offense still isn't going to be dull with him there. We might turn the ball over 5 times, but it isn't going to be dull. You run Russell Wilson's old ass out there. We have nothing. It's like watching Mike Glennon again. So Jameis will bring some excitement to the team, and I'm looking forward to that. We're also looking forward to your questions. That brings us to the end of this portion of Giants Collective, the Q&A portion brought to us by our friends at SeatGeek. Oh, good. It didn't take Adriana off this time because it took her off the last time for some reason. Use the promo code Giants Collective 10% off your tickets at SeatGeek. All you got to do is, again, click the link in the description to get that. Let's hear from SeatGeek. 80 seconds. Back after this with your questions. What's going on, guys and gals? You looking for a fun activity? You want to get out of the house? You need something to do? Are you looking for a great gift idea? Well, if so, look no farther than the sponsor of Giants Collective, which is SeatGeek. With over 35 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. There's more than 70,000 events listed on SeatGeek, including concerts, sports, festivals, and more. Giants season is underway. And say you want to check out Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders at MetLife Stadium? Well, it's easy. Just go to SeatGeek, scroll around, look for the tickets that you want, and SeatGeek's going to have your back. Each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know you're getting a good deal. Look for the green dots. That's good. The red dots, well, it's not so good. Plus, every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee. And of course, I have a code for you guys. You can use the code Giants Collective for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets with the promo code Giants Collective. Make sure you click that link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Thank you, SeatGeek, for sponsoring Giants Collective, and let's go Giants! Yeah, like I said, every time I watch that back, I'm like, I was excited. It was the beginning of the year. And obviously, you might not be able to see Jaden Daniels because he also had a very gruesome injury, which I didn't even realize because I was in Manhattan. I came back the next day. I'm like, what the hell happened to him? And dislocated elbow. Not pretty at all. Washington came back to reality, too. Washington reminds me a lot of us. Remember in 2022, we had that really good year, and then we got injured, and we went back to reality really sucking. Washington.
Sometimes winning will set a franchise back way more than losing will. And I think that's what's going to happen in Washington. I definitely think that's what happened to us in 2022.
We signed Daniel Jones for $160 million. Didn't work out. They signed McLaurin for $96 million. He's ass. And now he's hurt. He's going to Spain or wherever they're playing, and he ain't playing. So welcome back, Washington. Welcome back to reality. We got smacked with reality in 2023. You're getting smacked with it in 2025. And it sucks because if there's 2 teams I'd rather be fighting for the division, it's us in Washington because the other 2 teams can go take a long walk off a short pier. Sam, thank you, buddy. He says, Who will be the OC now, or will Kafka do both? It's a good question. And he doubled up, which I didn't think he meant to do that, but we appreciate it, Sam. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Kafka's going to be calling the plays. He's going to be the OC, is what I read in all the reports.
Interesting. So no Tierney promotion.
No, yeah, I read that Kafka's still maintaining his play calling duties, and it's really about that synergy that he has with Jackson Dart. With Kafka calling the plays over the last several years, the Giants have been better than when Tierney was calling plays for a brief amount of time in 2023, and definitely when Daboll was calling the plays last year. The results have just been better with Kafka, and this year, since Jackson Dart has taken over, the Giants are averaging, I believe it's 23.6 points per game. So Dart is cooking, and Kafka is helping him get there, and they don't want to break that up. So because the number one voice that Dart primarily has heard on all of these Sundays has been Mike Kafka, they don't want to change that for him. They want it to continue to be Mike Kafka. So that's what I was reading, and that makes sense to me. I think he should continue to call the plays. And like I said, I think we'll learn a lot about Kafka through this process. And if him and Dart really do have that synergy and that chemistry, again, I'm keeping an open mind to Kafka. I think that he's talented, and I think, he hasn't been perfect. He's made his mistakes throughout the last several years for sure. But now we get to see, as a head coach, how does he manage the game while still calling the plays? We're going to learn a lot about him, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see how him and Dart do together.
Yeah,
I agree.
I'm rooting for him. That's for sure. Maybe if he becomes a head coach, maybe he'd keep Tierney on board as his OC, or maybe he'd go a completely different direction. But it does make sense, since he's been calling the plays at Jackson Dart, for him to finish out the year doing that as well. Peace to Mateo. Thank you, brother. It would be the Giants' way for Daboll to go to Philly as their OC and win a Super Bowl. I actually said that to somebody on Twitter, because they said that the Giants ought to look at Kevin Patullo as their head coach being an asshole. And I was being legitimate, said you should bring Brian Daboll as your offensive coordinator. And they should. I mean, why not? But that would be the Giants' way. I don't think they need Brian Daboll. I mean, Philadelphia is good enough as it is. Doesn't really seem to matter what the hell they do. They fall ass backwards into shit constantly. It just makes me sick to my freaking stomach. Honestly, I'm just waiting for their downfall, impatiently waiting for their downfall. Chislo, thank you, man. He says, I feel for Kafka, no neighbors, no scat, no dart, no defense. That was another one of my tweets. No neighbors, no scat, no dart, no defense. Good luck, bro.
Yeah.
That was exactly my tweet.
One of the things I really wonder is if the lack of aggressiveness on play calling on defense had anything to do with Brian Daboll being the coach. We talk all the time about how he plays scared. He's afraid to be aggressive, and he's afraid to play to win. So he always plays not to lose, which ends up in them losing 99% of the time. But I don't think Shane Bowen's a good defensive coordinator. I'm not defending him. I just have to think maybe he has not been aggressive consistently or barely at all because Brian Daboll has not really allowed him to. We heard once from Brian Daboll after the Eagles game where him and defensive players went to Shane Bowen and said, let us be aggressive. They're aggressive for one game, everything goes well, and they win the game and they blow out the Eagles. The Eagles can't do anything on offense. And then from there, there's never any aggressiveness since then. So, like I said, this is not an advertisement for Shane Bowen. I still think he's not a good defensive coordinator, but I have to wonder if he's held back just the slightest bit, knowing the defensive line that he has. I wonder if part of the play calling, the lack of blitzing, all of that is because Daboll always plays it safe. And I think we'll find out on Sunday. That'll be a big tell. But I just have to wonder. And the other thing with that I wonder is if there were inklings in the locker room that the players didn't like and weren't fighting for Daboll. And they thought that with Daboll gone, maybe the players across the board, especially on defense, will play better because it's not that they hate Bowen, it's that they hate Daboll. Who knows?
Well, now Green Bay's offense isn't very good. So, I mean, we'll figure it out. They really have a lot of issues there. But, I mean, Jacobs is a damn good running back, so I expect a heavy dose of number 8 against the Giants this week. Cruise on, thank you. Brian Flores is my number one choice, but he sued the Giants. You can forget about that. That's never going to happen.
I don't know. I mean, he's a great choice, and I know that he did sue the New York Giants, but wouldn't the way to settle that lawsuit be to say, hey, we made a mistake hiring Daboll, we'll hire you now? Like, couldn't they remedy it by hiring him? I feel like.
Yeah, I just the question that I have is how bitter is he, right? Like we've
Sure.
seen Bill Belichick is being super petty and bitter with the Patriots, and my thing is like the fact that Flores hasn't dropped the lawsuit maybe means that he still feels very like he still feels one way about it, but you never know. I think the Giants, if they really like him, should consider reaching out to him and talking to him. I think it'd be a great defensive coordinator here. I just wonder, like, I don't know enough about him, but I wonder if he would be the type who'd be like, okay, we can sweep it under the rug. I can put it behind me. Like, I'm over it. Or if he'd be like, well, now you're only coming back to me because Brian Daboll sucks and he fucked it up, like, who knows? I don't know Brian Flores, but it's worth a shot. Why not?
I just wonder about the chemistry, how well he would do knowing that he wasn't their first choice, and that, like you said, he's kind of like, kind of like you want to take someone to the prom, and they tell you no, and you go to somebody else, and like, well, I asked you first, and you wanted to go with her. Not that I'm speaking from experience or anything, but but seriously, I just wonder how that would actually work. I mean, I do think he could be a really good head coach. I just don't know how it would work here.
Yeah, that happens sometimes, though. Sometimes teams interview coaches, they decide not to hire them, and then a few years later, they make a mistake. They go back to that coach, they interview them again, and then they end up hiring them. I mean, it's the same story if the New York Giants end up interviewing Steve Spagnuolo, if the New York Giants end up interviewing Lou Anarumo. They had those guys in for head coaching jobs previously, and now they've got a vacancy once again. Those guys are still hot and top coordinators that could be head coaches, so they're going to interview them again. And I don't think that the story should be much different for Brian Flores. I understand the lawsuit might get in the way, but if he has an open mind and if the New York Giants are interested, I would like to see an interview happen. I think that something should occur because he is one of the top coordinators in the NFL. And when he was a head coach, he was one of the top head coaches in the NFL for a stretch. And maybe he's learned a lot since then. So I think it's something that the Giants should hopefully have an open mind to. And I'm hoping that Brian Flores does too. But obviously, like Adriana said, we don't know. We don't know Brian Flores. So we don't know where his mind is. But that's up to the New York Giants. That's up to Joe Schoen. Joe Schoen has connections from Miami. Maybe he leverages that to get to Brian Flores and say, hey, I know some things transpired. Maybe we can remedy this. It's going to be on Joe Schoen to try and remedy that. So let's see if Joe Schoen can get into Brian Flores' psyche and figure out how he feels about it. And maybe they will get an interview done.
That's if Joe Schoen is even the guy doing the hiring. See,
well, that's what the Giants said it would be.
I know. I don't believe anything they say, Anthony. I don't believe anything they say. Jason Danger says, I agree that Shane should get a little bit more rope. Yes, he's had misses, but like most GMs, but Flott has become a solid cornerback one, improved offensive line, quarterback one, healthy cap. We need to get this head coach hire right. Main issue, in my opinion.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, and I will defend Shane on this belief because I will agree with the organization that in the sense that I think, like I said earlier, the team is better than what we've seen. And I believe that if someone like Vrabel was our coach or we had a better head coach, this year would look pretty different. I don't think we'd be 8-2, I think like the Patriots are, but I think we'd at the very least have a winning record. I think we'd have less penalties. I think we wouldn't be watching Tay Banks on the goddamn field. I don't think we'd have questions about Evan Neal and Jalen Hyatt. And, maybe I'm like oversimplifying things, but I just think with a better head coach, at the very least, I think we'd see a different defense and the Cowboys game wouldn't have gone the way it would. Same thing with the Broncos, the Bears. Like, I really do think in the NFL that coaching makes a big difference. And I think when you look at the Patriots and you look at some of these other teams, it's pretty obvious. Even Caleb Williams in year 2 with the new head coach looks much better. So I just think, I just don't think every player on our defense sucks. We're missing 2 starters. That's it. Like, it's unacceptable that in the fourth quarter, we've blown pretty much every single lead that we have. One of them being a 19-point lead. Like, it's just unacceptable on every level.
It's terrible. SPP Williams. Thank you, buddy. He says, happy collective day. Very happy Daboll is gone. Bowen needs to go next. Shane at the end of the season. Thanks, Adriana, for the suggestion. I made buffalo chicken thighs on rice for the game. Really good food.
Oh, great choice. Sounds so good. We'll never turn down
good.
buffalo chicken.
Who should? It's one of the greatest things ever made. Buffalo anything with hot sauces. It's really good in my opinion. Jason, thank you again. He says, John Lynch took a major swing and miss trading up for Trey Lance, but they overcame it because of great scheme and head coaching. Our roster is not bad.
I mean, look at Mac Jones. Like everyone complains about the fact that, Kyle Shanahan is a system offense and he's got system quarterbacks. Guess what? They all play well. How many other teams had written off someone like Mac Jones and been like, he sucks, he's done, can't succeed in the NFL? They've got a winning record over there with 1,000,001 injuries and with Mac Jones as their starting quarterback. So, I've also shit on system quarterbacks too, but I think, in some instances it works. And with all the issues that we've had, maybe I would take a system quarterback at this rate if I trusted the system that they were in. Like Kyle Shanahan's got a good thing going over there.
Yep, he definitely knows how to call a game. I've never had a problem with system quarterbacks. I always say if you have a quarterback, you're supposed to build a system around quarterback. Joe Montana technically was a system quarterback. That was Bill Walsh's West Coast offense, but nobody's going to tell me Joe Montana wasn't a good quarterback. I mean, obviously that's the coach's job. You need to figure out your quarterback strengths and weaknesses and build around his strengths. So we'll see if Kafka can do that with Jackson Dart. But I feel like Jackson Dart, some quarterbacks are just God. They don't need Josh Allen doesn't need a system. Mahomes don't need a system. These guys, Lamar Jackson doesn't need a system. And Joe Montana probably didn't either. But I always feel like the best quarterbacks are, have the best systems around them. Kyle Shanahan knows what the hell he's doing. He's always been a great offensive mind. A lot of pre-snap motion. And Anthony, I know you mentioned before, also scheming guys open. And something the Giants just don't do well. I think Kafka's got to get better at that, is scheming guys open. So we have, especially in the red zone, there's no reason not to have trips bunch inside the 5 and run a pick play and get a guy open in the corner in the middle of the end zone. We see every other team do it. We should be able to do that too. Saraf, thank you, says the roster's not been the issue, not with fourth quarter leads. Bad rosters don't get you that far. The real problem is coaching. Shane did his job. Well, I'm glad there's some people that agree with me.
I think it's fair.
Yeah. Go ahead, Anthony.
I mean, listen, I'm not a Joe Shane guy. I never have been. And it just is what it is. Like, I don't think that he's done his job to the fullest extent. I think when you're talking about holding people in this organization accountable, I understand why we're holding Brian Daboll accountable, and that should be happening. But the guy who hired Brian Daboll is Joe Shane. Where's the accountability for that? And I know that he's hit on a couple of these splashy draft picks. He's made a couple splashy moves. The Brian Burns trade was excellent. But overall, the team is still 2-8. You can't put all of that on coaching. You can't say it was all Brian Daboll. I mean, that's just scapegoating the one guy who's on the TV the most. I don't think it's entirely fair. And I think that this organization is overdue for a refresh. And I think that Joe Shane, yes, in many ways has done a refresh. He's done a lot to change things. He's hit on some really crucial aspects of the roster, and he's done some great things. But I cannot sweep all of the other stuff under the rug for a few of these splashy moments. I think you need to look at the overall whole body of work. And again, there's a lot behind the scenes that GMs do that we don't see. So maybe in the building, he's way more impressive than what we see from the team on the football field. But when I see this team on the football field, I still see a lot of holes. I still see a lot of mismanagement of this roster. I don't know how much of it is the coach. I know a lot of it is the GM. So I can't say that he's done a good job. I can say that he's done a less bad job than Daboll did, but that doesn't mean he's necessarily done a great job. So, but we'll see how it unfolds the rest of the season. Maybe he's totally right. Kafka steps in and the team wins games. Totally possible. Then I'll probably warm up even more to Joe Shane, but I don't know. He still has a lot to prove to me.
Yeah, that makes sense. And again, this might be the end of his rope too. If the Giants are bad, if they go 1-6 over the last 7 games, you probably see everybody go. That's probably the way it's going to go. They can say whatever they want, but again, I don't trust anything this organization tells us. So we'll just have to ride it out together and see exactly where it goes from here. LA Lou, thank you. Giants' problems were on-field decisions. I say stick with Shane for now. If you blow another lead, fire Bowen. Let Kafka cook. Worry about the head coach later. Yeah, Kafka is going to be here the rest of the year, regardless of what happens. Yep. They're not going to get rid of him. But again, if the Giants are 4-3, Kafka, in my opinion, deserves to be the head coach. Shane deserves to stay, and then Kafka can pick his coordinators. Bowen still should be going, unless the defense looks like the defense we thought it would be. If we end up with 25 sacks in these last 7 games and the defense all of a sudden turns around, then you could, like Anthony mentioned, say, or maybe it was Adriana, I forgot who mentioned that maybe Daboll was holding him back. I think Adriana said that. Daboll held him back because Daboll was careful and conservative, and maybe Shane Bowen wanted to be aggressive, and Daboll said, nope, you're going to drop 8. We're going to drop Brian Burns into zone coverage because that's the smart thing to do is drop your best pass rusher into zone coverage when you've got to get a sack. It's just fucking beautiful. I don't know what the hell we do over here. It doesn't make any sense at all. I don't know why he keeps dropping Adrian Adam. This last portion of Giants Collective is brought to you by our friends at Sleeper. Check out Sleeper. It's the fastest growing app out there. Almost 11 million people use the Sleeper app. You can also use it too. They have daily fantasy contests, college football, college basketball, and NBA. You can make entries in less than 30 seconds. You can do them for as little as $1, and you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. 2 great promotions going right now at Sleeper. If you have an account and haven't made a deposit, all you got to do is click the link in the description, enter the promo code HMA. They'll give you a 100% match deposit bonus up to $100 on your first deposit. Even better than that, if you don't have a Sleeper account and you would like to see what it's all about, well, they got an even better one for you guys and girls. Click the link in the description. All you got to do is open a Sleeper account. You don't need to make a deposit. You don't need to give them a credit card, debit card, nothing. Just open an account using that link, $20 for nothing. Check it out. And if you like it, which you're going to do because it's a lot of fun, you're still eligible for the 100% match deposit bonus up to $100 by using the promo code HMA. So big shout out to Sleeper for coming aboard the last portion of Giants Collective. Devin, thank you. He says, bruh, that happened at the stadium too. He fumbled. He fumbled. I think you're saying that he was at the stadium. He fumbled, then caught it, had his knees down, should have been ruled down. Same with Bellinger's touchdown. I didn't think Bellinger's was a touchdown. He didn't control it all the way through the process of the catch. I did not think that was a touchdown. The more I looked at the Jackson Dart thing, I thought he should have been down by contact. What did you guys think?
The dart, that's what I thought. 2 things. He was down by contact, and then I still thought that he had recovered it. So I still was surprised that Daboll did not throw the challenge flag, because I really thought that we all know him. He goes ballistic on the sidelines when anything doesn't go their way. So I thought for sure he'd be out there with the challenge flag. So it was odd to me that he wasn't. So I thought he must have, like, obviously seen from his vantage point that he was down.
Yeah, but they review all turnovers, so he couldn't challenge that. The New York decided that was a fumble. So, Anthony, what'd you think? I mean, was he down? I mean, it was a weird play.
I think it was really tough to tell. And at that point, is there enough conclusive evidence to get it overturned? I don't know. I mean, like you said, New York reviewed it. So if they reviewed it and they didn't overturn it, then it probably just wasn't conclusive.
Yeah. I felt like after seeing it, he should have been ruled down. I didn't get a good angle because it was, he saw it from behind. So I didn't know where he had the ball. But obviously there was something wrong with him at that point. For him to just lay there and not fight for a fumble, we know that's not Jackson Dart, Chislo, thank you, man. He says Dart's situational awareness is actually insane.
He's got eyes in the back of his head. If you're talking about spatial awareness, especially, he's really good. Situational awareness, I think he's really smart with the ball. Just he's got such poise. I said that all summer. The number one thing that I look for in rookie quarterbacks, number one thing I wanted to see from Jackson Dart was the word poise. And I think he's been the definition of poised throughout all of his starts, even throughout the preseason. So situational awareness is definitely a big box that he's checked. And I think it's one of those things that gives me a lot of confidence in him.
Yeah. He is very smart and very instinctual, which is something that I just felt like Daniel Jones never had here, was instincts. I feel like Dart's got great instincts, and he's a guy that's always looking downfield and looking to make a play. And I love that about him. So hopefully he gets better soon, but we got our quarterback. I freaking love Jackson Dart. Kevin, thank you, buddy. He says 50-50 on Shane. Video evidence shows you guys liked a lot of his picks. He was the first-time GM handcuffed to Jones by owner. He's improved, learned nucleus stronger than he inherited. Get a proven head coach, not another first-timer. Anthony, go ahead.
Yeah, this is where I have to jump in. The handcuff to Jones by the owner is such a false narrative. That one really annoys me, because Joe Schoen made a decision. If anything, what we've learned was that ownership tried to handcuff Joe Schoen to Saquon Barkley. They said, we're not trading you, Saquon. We want you here. We want to build with you. We want you to be a franchise legend. Saquon, you're not leaving. You're not allowed to leave. Joe Schoen, get a deal done with him. I will not sleep at night if he leaves and goes to Philadelphia. And Joe Schoen said, nah, I'm going to handcuff myself to Daniel Jones, and I'm going to let Saquon Barkley go, despite ownership wishing that it was the other way around. So I disagree. And that's Joe Schoen's bed that he needs to sleep in. He made that one. He signed Daniel Jones to that contract. He should not have signed Daniel Jones to that contract. That was a train wreck that I saw coming from miles away, and that's what it ended up being. So, yeah, credit to Jones. He's having a great second stint now with the Indianapolis Colts, although it's been a little shaky the last couple of weeks, as I predicted that it would be when the schedule got a little tougher. But credit to him. He's had a good season. And, maybe Joe Schoen could have been right with a different coaching staff. Who knows? You can really look at this from every different angle. But to say that he was handcuffed, I don't agree. I really think that ownership tried to handcuff him to Barkley. He decided positional value, the importance of that. He let Saquon Barkley go. Shouldn't have. The Daniel Jones contract never should have been signed. That's 100% on Joe Schoen to me.
I'll always argue that Barkley didn't want to be here, and Schoen did try to sign him, and then Schoen had nothing to do. You can't tag them both. You just had a playoff run. I'm not advocating for Daniel Jones, but he just went to the playoffs and won a playoff game for the first time in 10 years. He killed it against Minnesota. Were you going to be able to sell the fan base going forward with Tyrod Taylor? They were drafting 25th. They couldn't get a quarterback. So, again, I can always play devil's advocate with Joe Schoen. Either way, like I said, like Kevin just said, I'm 50-50. The one thing I'll say, I don't think he was handcuffed to Daniel Jones. And the reason I say that is because the first order of business when he came in here, they didn't give him the fifth-year option. Or they didn't pick that up. He was coming off a neck injury. They could have easily given him that. That was like $23 million or whatever it was. And he said, nope. We're not taking that. We're going to make him prove it. And they went to the postseason, and he had the best year pretty much of his career overall. I know he didn't throw as many touchdowns as he did his rookie year. But I think that's what happened. If he got hurt again and the Giants won 5 games, he would have never been here. So, Anthony, you mentioned it earlier. Sometimes winning is the worst thing for a franchise. And if they lost, Daniel Jones does not get that contract. So, who knows? It's water under the bridge. Again, I'm like Kevin. I am 50-50 on Joe Schoen. I can take him or leave him. He's done some good things. He's done some lousy things. It's just, and the problem is there is no denying this. We're still a really lousy football team. That's a fact. Analyst, thank you, brother. He says, Dart needs to sit 2 to 3 weeks to get healthy. While out, have him watch film on how Hurts, Mahomes, Jackson go down quick while running to avoid contact. The one thing I'll say about Hurts is built like a tank. Hurts can take those hits. Dart's not that big, but I agree with Mahomes and Jackson. They're not as big. And Mahomes is really good at knowing when to get the extra yards and knowing when to slide. I think that's something that comes with experience. And like Anthony mentioned, I think it's something he can learn, but it's a good point. He should learn how to do that stuff. His career lasts a lot longer if he can avoid some of those hits he's taken. I remember the interview with John Gruden. He's like, +2. John Gruden said, what's that? He's like, you got to get fucking down, man. He goes, I don't need you in the tent. And I'm going, where's Dart? That's exactly what's going on right now. Where's Dart? With Malik Neighbors and Cam Scatterbo, unfortunately. Yep. Nicole, thank you so much. I'm really scared to replace JD because he's not Joe Schoen's guy. Jackson Dart, they're not replacing him.
No, they're going to make sure that the head coach likes Jackson Dart before they bring him in. I think that's going to be a qualifying factor. But I also think anyone who's watched film on Jackson Dart is going to like him. And we've seen this be a big topic throughout the media in the last 24 hours, is that coming to the Giants is going to be a very desirable place to work. And it's not just Jackson Dart. It's Abdul Carter, Brian Burns, Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence, Andrew Thomas, Marcus Lowe, Neighbors, Scat, Tracy, like the list goes on. So I wouldn't worry about that because I don't think that that's going to be an issue. And I think that, like we have all said, is that Jackson Dart has a lot of good skills, and with a good coach, it could only get better.
Yeah. And with healthy players, with a healthy Malik Neighbors.
Yeah.
And a healthy Carnell Tate.
Oh, I love him so much.
It's going to be good. We're manifesting that. When we come to you in April, we'll be talking about that. Maybe him or Jordan Tyson. It'll be somebody. You're going to want to set Jackson Dart up for success. And having a guy, another number one receiver, that'd be pretty awesome. Brian, thank you. You said they should have fired Shane. All the Giants' best players obtained in the draft are Gettleman picks. Holland doesn't replace McKinney or Love. The entire 2024 class regressed this year. Clint Kubiak coach.
See a lot of Kubiak talk.
Yeah.
A lot of that going around. I think just because they haven't fired Shane, it doesn't mean that they won't. I get the feeling that Mara is probably like, what's the point of firing a GM at this point in the season? That's kind of my guess. I don't know if he's completely enamored with Joe Shane, but as we were saying earlier, Ian O'Connor said that just because they didn't fire Shane yet, don't expect him to. That means that he's definitely going to be here, for next season. So we'll see how it goes. But I don't know. I'm now kind of feeling like either way. The thing that I just don't like is if you're going to stick with Joe Shane, then you have to extend him. You can't just say, well, we're going to give him one more year and then bring in a head coach. And then if it doesn't work, you worry about it next year. Like, you're either riding with Joe Shane for the next couple years or you're done. And there's no in between. I don't want to see any wishy-washy shit with the GM.
Agreed 100%. Again, to play devil's advocate, I think McKinney, I think his relationship was fractured because of the ATV accident and calling out Wink Martindale and a lot of other stuff. So I think it was kind of fractured there. Again, Joe Shane is a positional value guy. And when I look at McKinney and Love leaving, it's the same thing as Saquon. The Giants offensive line gave up 85 sacks the year before. And on Hard Knocks, he said, Patrick Mahomes isn't doing anything if you're giving up 85 sacks. It does not matter how good your quarterback is if your offensive line cannot keep the guy upright. So he was in a tough spot. Granted, he missed on a lot of linemen. Unfortunately, Evan Neal was a massive miss. McKeithen was a miss. Izudu was a miss. That sucks. But again, I'm sorry. I'm not going to blame him for Evan Neal. Anybody had that guy going top 10. Everybody had him going top 10.
You know what I've been thinking about, though? That was always my defense, too. But I wonder... And I know Shedeur Sanders was different because of all the drama that came along with it. But it does happen every year where there's one guy who everyone says is going to be, the guy that goes top 10 or whatever. And then as teams don't draft him, he slowly goes down the list. And I really wonder, well, obviously never know the answer to this, but I do wonder if the Giants don't pick Evan Neal there, let's just say they pick anyone else. Like, does he still go top 10? Because I know he was rated that highly. And I don't know. Just have to wonder. You never know.
I forgot who was picking after them, but I think that
was it the Jets?
It was one of them, and I think they wanted him, and that's why Shane did not take Neal fifth and he took Thibodeau, because whoever was going after the Giants 6 didn't need a lineman. I forgot what they needed, but he felt better at getting Neal at 7. He didn't think Thibodeau would be there at 7. So I don't know. That's a glaring miss, and that's a big miss. There's no question about it. So again, he's had good, he's had bad, but I can always point, like I said, I can always play devil's advocate and try to understand why he made the moves he made. Doesn't mean they were the right moves, but I understand the logic behind some of the things he did. It sucks being a really bad team and having to rebuild it. But yeah, a lot of his best players that he re-signed, Andrew Thomas, Dexter Lawrence, those are, even Darius Slayton, those are Dave Gettleman guys. So if we could have just put them together, we might have had something. If we could put Dave Gettleman's drafting ability with Joe Shane's trading ability and ability to work the cap, we might have actually had something. Big Case, thank you. Says, who would have thought all these years later McAdoo is the best coach we've had after Coughlin? McAdoo wanted Pat Mahomes. Jerry Reese told him no.
So much dysfunction in this organization.
It's just great. Yeah, they're never all on the same page. Never. It's always something.
Well, that's part of the worry here with a new head coach coming in with the same GM. That's why McAdoo and Reese weren't on the same page. So that's my worry, but we'll see.
We'll see if he's here. I think the last 7 games, I think it's a trial for Shane too.
I do too. And I'll say this. I keep mentioning that point that I'm worried about a lack of synergy between a new head coach and Joe Schoen. And, obviously that's something that the Giants did with Gettleman. They let him hire a second coach. Reese obviously was attached with McAdoo. But then again, you look around the NFL, the Patriots general manager fired the head coach this offseason, brought in Mike Vrabel, and they're having a lot of success. You're looking at the Chicago Bears. Ryan Poles outlasted Matt Eberflus. He brought in Ben Johnson. Now he's having a lot of success. And there's actually several other instances where a GM did hire a second coach and has had success right now currently happening across the NFL. That's becoming almost the new blueprint, is for these GMs to get the second opportunity. And sometimes they're getting it right on that second opportunity. It doesn't always work. I don't think it worked. Joe Douglas was just a mess with the Jets through and through. But if there is a way to look for optimism, you look at the Patriots, you look at the Bears, you look at some of these other franchises. Sometimes the second time around, the GM does get it right. There is refound synergy, and it does work out. So hopefully that's the case for the Giants if they do keep Joe Schoen.
That's right. This portion of Giants Collective is being brought to you by our friends at Sleeper. You can get they have great promotions going right now. Let's hear from them. 30 seconds back after this with the rest of your questions.
Sleeper is the #1 fantasy sports app. It pays to know sports. Pick more or less on top players. Your first pick is on us, so start winning now. Play in Texas, Georgia, Minnesota, and 27 more states. Pick anytime across all sports, pregame or live. Over 10 million players are already on Sleeper. Make your picks count. Score up to 1,000 times your cash. Join today. Get up to $100 credit using code HMA. Call your shot on Sleeper. Download now.
All righty. Let's the rest of these. A. Sealy, thank you so much. DraftKings has Mike McCarthy as the favorite for the job. I'll let you discuss. I'm actually going to do a video on this after this show and upload it tomorrow about the coaches. But what do you guys think?
I like Mike McCarthy as the potential head coach of the New York Giants. I don't think that it's going to be viewed as a home run slam dunk. I don't even think it was when the Dallas Cowboys made the hiring. I think a lot of people looked at that as, a failed hiring. But if you really look at the body of work that he put in Dallas, that team won a lot of regular season games. And the Giants have lost a lot of regular season games over the last few years. These losses that the Giants have had this year, those 4 double-digit losses, Mike McCarthy closes out those games. The Giants are in a wild card spot if they win those 4 games, and Mike McCarthy would have them in a wild card spot right now. I don't know if he takes us to the Super Bowl. I don't think we win a Super Bowl with Mike McCarthy necessarily, but Chris made the great analogy. If you're looking at the New York Knicks, Tom Thibodeau returned them to relevancy, got them to win regular season games, got them to be perennial playoff team again. Mike McCarthy would make the Giants, in my opinion, a perennial playoff team. Would he make them perennial Super Bowl contenders or winners and champions? Probably not. I don't know about that. But at the same time, McCarthy was playing with Jerry Jones's groceries. Jerry Jones was doing a lot of shopping and construction of that roster. They came up thin in the playoffs a lot of times, yes, in large part due to McCarthy, the bright lights getting too bright for Dak, but also because that roster was limited by Jerry Jones. Now, I understand the large argument when he was in Green Bay. He should have won more with Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers should have several rings. That's absolutely true. I mean, he should have gotten one that year that the Giants knocked them out, but that was a tidal wave of Eli Manning. Nobody was stopping that tidal wave in 2011-12. We all know that as Giants fans, but I just think when you look at McCarthy from the perspective of bridging this franchise back to relevancy and stabilizing them, that's what he did for Dallas coming out of the Jason Garrett era. He stabilized them once again. And I think the New York Giants really need stability from the head coaching position, need a guy who can stabilize the franchise, be a leader, a CEO type. I think McCarthy can do that. And he's got an excellent track record hiring great coordinators, OCs, DCs who go on to become head coaches who just do a great job as OCs and DCs. He's really good at that too. So I think there's a lot of positives to Mike McCarthy. It's not all positive. It's not a slam dunk, like I said. But if that's the hiring that they make, I probably won't complain about it.
What's Dallas doing this year without Mike McCarthy?
Struggling.
The
lack of stability is what they have too. They have a lack of
roster though, right outside of Micah Parsons. Obviously, they don't have him, but that's Jerry Jones. That's not the head coach. But I mean, it's the same thing. So I wouldn't have a problem with McCarthy. Like I said, I plan on actually doing a video about that, and most of it's going to be based around Mike McCarthy. Jermaine Brown, thank you so much. Mike Tomlin or McCarthy for head coach, Spags or Pierce for DC. I can't see Spagnuolo just going laterally.
Same.
I can't see that. If Spags is coming back to the Giants, this is a head coach. And I'm sure they'll reach out to him. I will be shocked if he doesn't get an interview. I'll be shocked. A lot of people like Antonio Pierce as a DC. He did do a pretty good job with Vegas. And of course, he has the ties to the Giants. I think that sometimes as Giants fans, we long for the days, we have nostalgia for some of these guys that were successful, which is why you hear Belichick all the time. Belichick is 75 years old. I don't want Belichick. I loved Bill when he was here. I'm old enough to remember those great defenses of the 80s. We saw what he did in New England. He's not the guy anymore. And Gruden's another one. I love John Gruden. I love his attitude. I love his fire. I love his attitude. He's just, I like that guy, but he hasn't coached in a long, long time. So I don't know. But I'll be surprised. If Tomlin's fired, you can bring him in here yesterday. I'm happy.
I love it.
I can't see Tomlin getting fired, though. I can't see it happen. I did like his press conference, though, when they said, how did Aaron Rodgers look? Or somebody said, how do you think he looked? He don't give a shit. Yeah, Adriana's favorite quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, looked like Dookie the other day. Panda, can you imagine if Aaron Rodgers was on the Giants, what this shit show would look like right now? Pandemonium, thank you, says Daboll got axed because of DJ and his misuse of the roster, plus his bad decisions in the fourth quarter most of the games this year. I can't blame him for DJ. I don't really know about that. Daniel Jones didn't succeed with Shermer. Well, he didn't have much of a change. He turned the ball over a lot with Shermer, and he was bad with Joe Judge. So Daboll got him paid. I'll say that. Daboll got him paid. Nicole, thank you, Shed. I hope he keeps. Well, Slayton's under contract. McFadden, I don't know what his deal is. We're definitely missing him. And Cordell Flott is an absolute must sign. Must.
Yeah. I would re-sign McFadden, Flott, Illuminor. Who am I missing?
I think we're Wandale. Would you bring back Wandale Robinson?
I wouldn't. I would go for someone in the draft. But who am I? I'd also try and get Tibbs under contract long term. I think that he's not going to go for it this year, but I'd at least try it.
How about we do something?
Oh, Bellinger. Sorry, I would re-sign him too.
How about we do something crazy? Jalen Hyatt's still under contract for another year. How about we draft a wide receiver, or you let Wandale walk, and you put fucking Hyatt in the slot? How about Jalen Hyatt in the slot between Tate and Neighbors? No?
No, I've been screaming for this. I've been banging the table to put him in the slot. I don't understand why they play him as an outside receiver. He is the most obvious speed slot that I've ever seen. And people sometimes, when I mention this on Fireside Giants, and sometimes on the show, I've seen the comments too, they say, he can't play in the slot. He's not a good enough route runner. He's not physical over the middle of the field. And it's like, there's a lot of different variations of a slot receiver. He does not need to play the game like Wandale Robinson plays the game, or like Sterling Shepard played the game, or like Wes Welker played the game. There are guys who play in the slot and just run crossers and go routes and fades and comebacks, and they make a killing on those routes. You can have a very limited but effective route tree from the slot that just uses his one trait, which is speed. There's the jumbo slot, which is kind of like that Michael Thomas. You remember how he had that 130 reception season because he was just a big dude that ran slant routes all game long. That's one variation of a slot. Then you have your prototypical slot guys like a Wandale or a Wes Welker who are shorter, but they're physical and really good route runners. And then you have your speed slots. Jalen Hyatt could be a speed slot. There's different variations. The Giants, it doesn't make sense to me. The reason why they did it, in my opinion, is because when they drafted Jalen Hyatt, the intention was for him to succeed Darius Slayton. They wanted to get off of Darius Slayton, move off from him, and then put Hyatt in that role. Hyatt's not good enough in that role. Therefore, they went ahead and extended Darius Slayton, so they compounded the issue. This is a Joe Schoen problem to me. This is one of those things that I think he did wrong. They should have just put Jalen Hyatt in the slot where he played in college, where he belongs, allowed him to thrive there, because I really think he could be a decent player in that position if he learns how to catch the ball. He's got the other traits for it. and then moved on from Darius Slayton. So I do think there's an argument for keeping Wan'Dale, though, on that topic. I like Wan'Dale. He's a good slot receiver, but obviously they need to get a good outside receiver as well, opposite Neighbors, or just a really good WR2. He could even be in the slot. I don't care. They just need a better second option than what they have now. And I would like to see them move on from Slayton. I think he's made business decisions, and I'm just tired of him. I used to be a big fan, but it is what it is now.
Do you think that Jalen Hyatt not being in the slot is that on Joe Schoen or is that on coaching?
I think it's on coaching. I think it's probably on receivers coach Mike Groh, but it's probably more on Brian Daboll for having a vision of where he wants Jalen Hyatt in the offense, and everybody else is trying to put him in that offense, in that role. But at the same time, the general manager and the head coach make the decision to draft Jalen Hyatt for that role. So I think it's both, really. I think that they misevaluated Hyatt and what he was. And I think that's from the scouting department, which is Shane's department. But then I think there should have been an adjustment to implement him better and develop him better. And that's on Daboll and his department. But I think both departments completely misread the situation and just screwed the pooch.
No.
Yeah, I'm curious if we see more of Hyatt now that Daboll's gone, because I really believe that him and Daboll there was something not right there. And I wonder if Daboll kind of stunted his growth a little bit. And part of it is on Jalen Hyatt. I'm not putting all the blame on Daboll, but when you're bringing in Ray McLeod out of nowhere, when you already have Lil Jordan Humphrey, who's a good target for Jackson Dart, some of those moves were so odd to me. Like, they traded up for Jalen Hyatt. They were, really, they obviously liked him enough to bring him in and whatever. But my complaint with Hyatt too is, he has the speed. You're going to tell me he can't catch a 5-yard slant and just see where it goes? Like, we loved that about Odell. Obviously, Odell has way better hands than him and better route running capabilities, but he had the speed. That's what you should be doing. Like, use him like the Chiefs use Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy, these guys that are speedsters. Like, he doesn't have to be a deep ball threat every time. We know he's not good at contested catches, and we know he doesn't have the hands to, and he's not great at tracking the ball to make those types of plays. So use Slayton on them, who's a little bit better, not much, but I don't know. I just feel like we've heard so much about Daboll being this offensive guru, and I just, we finally have the quarterback. That was the excuse. He couldn't run the offense that he wanted to run with Daniel Jones. Okay, well, he had Jackson Dart, and there wasn't a whole lot of creativity or all sorts of different stuff that, I think maybe was the expectation, knowing we got this offensive genius in here.
Kevin, thank you so much. He says, if Shane is fired, who replaces him? If we're going to start over again, I want a proven GM. Probably be Brandon Brown, I would guess. I mean, I don't know. I'm not good with that. Like, I can give you more so who I think should be the head coach or who I'd like. I don't know anything about general managers or where they come from. I couldn't tell you the general manager of more than 3 teams.
Yeah, I know there's 2 teams I know that draft very well, especially in the last 5 years. And it's been the Lions and it's been the Rams. So I'd be going after their assistant GMs. I think it's going to be hard to get their GMs over here. So if you can get someone like a Brandon Brown who worked under Howie Roseman, I'd for sure be interviewing, Brown for that role, but I'd be going after people who learn from some of the best and who have success in those types of recent drafts too. I think that's really important, because one of the things that we've also talked about too, and I don't know if we'll ever know the answer to this, is that the first 2 drafts under Joe Schoen were not great. They really started to get better the last 2 years. How much of the staff were Dave Gettleman's people? Was it all Joe Schoen's people? It obviously wasn't, because there's no way from the middle of January until April he was switching over the entire scouting department in a matter of 3 months. So I know there must have been a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Another like overlap between Gettleman's people and Shane's people. So Gettleman obviously got some drafts right, and he got a lot of draft picks wrong. So I really wonder about that. So I'd be going after people who have had success, like those 2 teams. And I'm sure there's quite a few others, but those 2 stick out the most to me.
I mean, we did it with Joe Schoen, right? I mean, Buffalo was very successful, and Bean was a really good GM. So but again, it's hard. I mean, it's hard to hit on any of this stuff. It's not an exact science. So some teams are just better than others. It's just the fact Joe Schoen went this way is the reason I'm on board being okay with keeping him. Daboll went the complete opposite direction. So I don't know. You could tell Daboll was done though. You could tell in these interviews he looked just mentally just exhausted, and he gave the same answer every time. He had nothing. He had nothing left. Anthony said he was a dead man walking after week 3, and that's the way he approached the media.
Let me also say this. When I heard he was a dead man walking from who told me that, they also did tell me that Joe Schoen was going to see out the rest of the season. They told me that Daboll would get fired midseason, but Schoen was going to be here till the end no matter what. And I've learned a little bit more. A lot of it does have to do with Mara and what he's going through personally, and that midseason he's not going to do something like that, and he really thinks highly of Schoen. I think Shane's going to be here in 2026 based on what I heard.
We'll see. Just got to hope, if that's the case, just got to hope the best for Joe Schoen. It's just we want these guys to succeed. I hated it for Daboll. I wanted Daboll to I'm rooting for anybody that's the head coach or the GM, whatever, because we want them to win. And if they're successful, we're successful. If they're not, this is the shit we go through every couple of years. Sticky Bandit, we just need a clean house as far as staff. Joe Schoen, too many mistakes, misjudgment on players, and no accountability. We need people who care. It's fair. It's, that's the big argument against Joe Schoen is there's no accountability. Is that on Daboll? Is that on Schoen? We're going to find out. Obviously, management, the ownership was higher. Like Anthony said, they're higher on Schoen than they were on Daboll. We're going to find out over the next 7 games what the problem is. Pandemonium, thank you, says Bad Dog disappointment. Kafka got DJ paid. What's the difference between 2022 New York and 2025 Colts besides R. James?
Richie James?
Yeah, I don't know who R. James is. Well, I can tell you this. Number one, Daboll had a lot to do with that. He has to okay all he goes over the play calling as well. And Kafka may have been calling plays, but Daboll's got a lot to do with that. If you looked at Daniel Jones, they rolled him out a lot, and he was a 1-2 quarterback. That was it. They didn't put too much on his plate. The next year, they try to make him a 1-2-3 quarterback. It doesn't work. Defenses get film on the way Daboll ran his offense, and they adjusted. Daniel Jones, for whatever reason, couldn't make that adjustment back. Started losing 40-0 to Dallas. That was a really bad indictment on everything. And then you knew, oh, shit, here we go again. And then he got hurt a couple of times. He hurt his neck. Then he tore his ACL. It just never worked. That 1 year, he was amazing throwing to Richie James. In Indianapolis, he has a better play caller, a much better offensive line. And in my opinion, he's probably got the league MVP. If it's not him, it's Drake May, but Jonathan Taylor. Even Saquon Barkley never had a year like Jonathan Taylor's having in Indianapolis.
No.
And Daniel Jones and none of a Tyler Warren here either. I mean, Tyler Warren is a fucking beast. So his team's a lot better in Indianapolis. He didn't have shit here. Daniel Jones was throwing to practice squad. He was throwing to Marcus Johnston. They picked up Isaiah Hodgins off the scrap. He had shit here in 2022. He had Barkley. That was it. So I feel like whatever the hell Daboll did in 2022, they beat good teams. They beat Baltimore. They beat Green Bay. They found ways. It just, once defenses got film on what they were doing with Daniel Jones, Brian Daboll, you want to say Daboll didn't do it, Jones, whatever, they couldn't adjust. By then it was too late.
Yeah.
Too late. You have him under contract. Sea Flame, how do you feel about Marcus Freeman of Notre Dame? He's another popular name, is Marcus Freeman.
I love him, but not for the Giants. I'm really steadfast in the one thing that the new Giants head coach has to have is head coaching experience. We need someone who's going to be able to come in here and there's a lot of things that they have to be able to do. They have to be able to hold players accountable. They have to be able to work on the discipline. They have to be detail oriented. They have to be good at time management, clock management, all the things. And I just think that someone as young as Freeman, who does not have any experience in the NFL, is not going to be capable of doing that just yet. Maybe in the future. But I do like him. I think what he's doing in Notre Dame, very impressive. Jeremiah Love is an absolute monster. They've had some good players come in and out of there. I really liked Benjamin Morrison last year. So he's definitely doing a great job, but I really feel like this team where it's at is very young. and it needs someone who's going to be able to help take them to the next level, with discipline and all of those things, which is why I like someone like Tomlin, because I think he has all of the qualities and has what it takes to take the team to the next level.
What the hell just happened there? That happened to me once before, too. It just boots me out of there. I don't know what happened. I guess they didn't like what I was. There we go. Thank you. It's good to be back. I don't know what the hell happened there. All of a sudden, my screen went black and I wasn't there anymore. Last one of the night. JC, thank you, brother. He says, agreed. Eli was good at going down and protecting himself. Agree a bad dog on Joe. Let's give his rookies at least 3 years. It'd be nice if someone could get a percentage of top GMs and draft hits to better asses Joe. To better assess Joe. Better asses. To better assess Joe. Yeah, like I said, I can make an argument both ways for Joe Schoen. Brian Daboll, I felt like it was over. I feel like it's over for Shane Bowen. I like Kafka getting the opportunity to be the head coach here. Bowen needs to go. He's terrible. I don't give a shit what anybody. You're not going to convince me otherwise. You're not going to convince me otherwise that it wasn't Daboll's time to go. I'm just not as gung-ho on getting rid of Shane as I was Daboll and Bowen. But like I said, if they decided they were going to move on from him at the end of the season, I'm not going to rage about it either. I would understand why they made the move. So I don't know. If they keep him, I just hope he can. I feel like he's done a good job the last few years in trades, free agency, and drafting. I want to see him continue to build around Jackson Dart. He obviously has some vision, but these last 7 games are going to let us know, is it really the talent? Is the talent that bad? Can they just not finish games in general? Or is it the coaching that kind of held these guys back from being as good as we think they can be? Abdul Carter should have more than a half a sack. I know he's got a ton of pressures, but how does he have a half a sack? So I don't know. But that brings us to the close of another edition of Giants Collective. As always, we appreciate you guys and girls tuning in. It's just being very weird today. It's very glitchy. The StreamYard is very glitchy. But we appreciate you guys, girls, tuning in. Again, if you haven't done so, hit the thumbs up, subscribing the bell. We're over 6,100 subscribers. We appreciate that very much. You can check us out on TikTok and Instagram. You can also check us out on wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and iHeartRadio. Big shout out to the sponsors, Sleeper, SeatGeek, Doer, and Manta. We appreciate you all tuning in. We'll see you on Thursday. For Audron and Anthony, it's the Bad Diggy Dizzle, and we are out. Peace.